The sky above the planet Kyvaron was dark and full of smoke. Fire spread across the royal city. Buildings once tall and beautiful were now broken and burning. Screams had faded. The people had either escaped or died. In the middle of the ruined palace, a little alien girl sat alone. Her name was Princess Xariah. She was only 7 years old. Her skin was soft blue, her long silver hair dirty and tangled. Her royal dress was torn. She sat hidden behind a fallen pillar, hugging her knees, eyes wide in fear. Everyone had left her. The guards who had promised to protect her ran away. The servants who used to bow and call her my princess disappeared. Even her teachers and caretakers had escaped the moment the army of General Dravik took the palace. General Dravik had once served her father, the king, but now he had betrayed the royal family. He wanted power. He said a weak little girl could never rule Kyvaron. Xariah had seen her parents taken away. She didn't know if they were alive. She didn't even know if they were on the planet anymore. She hadn't eaten in 2 days. Her small body shivered in the cold night wind. The fire had reached the main hall. She could smell the smoke and ash. But she didn't cry anymore. She had no more tears left. Then, she heard something. Footsteps, not the heavy boots of soldiers. These were softer yet had weight. They were careful, slow, and sniffing. Xariah held her breath and peeked from behind the pillar. A shape moved in the shadows. It was not a soldier, not an alien. It was a dog, but not a normal dog. This one was big, taller than her. Its body was half metal, half fur. One of its eyes glowed red like a machine. The other was soft and brown like a kind soul. It was a human war dog, the kind used in old space wars. She had read about them in books. Humans had trained these animals to fight, track, and protect. But this one looked different. Older, scarred, damaged. Still, the dog didn't growl. He sniffed the air and slowly walked toward her. Xariah froze. She didn't know if he would attack, but she had no strength to run. The dog stopped just in front of her. They looked at each other. Then, he sat down. His metal tail curled beside him. His head tilted slightly as if asking, "Are you okay?" Xariah's lip trembled. She didn't speak, but the dog inched closer and gently nudged her hand with his cold nose. Suddenly, her stomach growled. The dog stepped back, opened a small compartment in his metal side, and dropped a sealed packet in front of her. Food, human emergency rations. Xariah stared. She took the pack with shaking fingers, opened it, and started to eat. It tasted strange, but she didn't care. The dog lay beside her, his warm fur pressing against her small body. For the first time in 2 days, she felt safe. The dog's name was Argon. He didn't speak, but he understood everything. He had once belonged to a human commander. He had served in 3 wars. But after the last battle, he had been left behind. He had wandered from planet to planet, hiding, surviving. He had seen cruelty in many forms. But when he found the little princess crying alone in the ruins, something changed inside him. He didn't know her name. He didn't know her story. But he knew she needed him. Argon stayed close to her all night. When cold wind blew through the cracks in the broken wall, he moved to shield her. When loud bangs echoed outside, he growled low to keep danger away. Xariah slowly began to trust him. Are you my guardian now?" she asked in a soft voice. Argon didn't answer, but he pressed his head against her arm. To her, that was enough. As dawn came, red light spread across the broken palace. Argon stood up suddenly. His sensors beeped. He moved quickly and nudged Xariah awake. "What is it?" she whispered. Argon growled and looked toward the far wall. Outside, enemy drones had entered the area. They had picked up her heat signal. Xariah's eyes filled with fear again. "They're coming to kill me." But Argon stood firm, his legs bent, ready to run. His eye glowed red. He looked at her and gave a short, sharp bark. She understood. He would not let them take her. She grabbed his fur, climbed onto his back and held tight. Argon turned and ran, through the smoke, past the fire, toward the ruins where maybe, just maybe, hope still waited. The sound of metal claws echoed in the ruins as Argon ran through the broken halls of the palace. Princess Zeria held tightly to his back, her tiny fingers buried in his fur. Behind them, red tracking lasers from the enemy drones lit up the smoke-filled air. Zeria didn't look back. She was too afraid. She pressed her face into Argon's shoulder and whispered, "Don't leave me, please." But Argon had no plans to leave. He wasn't just running. He was choosing. Long ago, Argon was built by humans on Earth. He was half animal, half machine. His brain was smart, filled with memory chips and combat instincts. But unlike other war dogs, Argon had something rare: emotion. He had served soldiers, protected children, and saved lives. But in the end, even humans abandoned him. He was left behind on a transport ship that crashed on Kyvaron during a forgotten war. Since then, he had lived alone in the wild ruins, hunting, surviving, watching, until yesterday when he saw her. The little alien girl with silver hair, alone, unprotected, crying softly in the dark. Something deep inside him shifted. He didn't just see a lost child. He saw himself, alone, forgotten, abandoned. And at that moment, Argon made a decision, not one based on programming or logic, but on loyalty. He would protect her. Until his last breath. Argon dashed into an old stone tunnel beneath the palace. The walls were cracked, but the scent of dust told him it hadn't been used in years. The drones chased them, buzzing louder. Argon stopped at a blocked passage. A giant steel gate had collapsed in the way. There was no time to turn back. He scanned the rubble and spotted a small hole beneath the wreckage, just big enough for Zeria. He lowered himself and barked softly. Zeria looked scared. "I can't. Go in there." Argon gave her a gentle nudge. She crawled off his back, wiped her eyes, and whispered, "Okay. I trust you." She slid into the hole and disappeared into the dark. The drones were close now. Argon turned and ran back toward the sound, toward danger. He wanted to lead them away. Outside, 2 attack drones spotted him. They fired. Argon jumped behind a pillar as plasma bolts hit the ground. Dust and sparks flew, but Argon was fast. His metal legs gave him strength. He launched forward and leaped over one drone, slamming it with his body. The machine crashed into a wall. The second drone fired again. A laser grazed Argon's side, burning fur and metal. He growled in pain but kept moving. Argon raced in circles through the ruins, leading the drone far from Zeria's tunnel. Then, when it chased close, he slid beneath a broken beam and triggered an old defense trap. Boom! A blast of heat and fire lit up the ruins. The drone was gone. Argon lay still for a moment. Smoke rose from his side. His leg was damaged, but he stood. He limped back to the tunnel. Zeria peeked out of the hole when she heard him coming. Her eyes widened when she saw him limping and burned. "No," she cried and ran to him. She hugged his neck tightly. "You came back." Argon let out a soft growl, one of comfort. "I thought you died." He licked her cheek gently and dropped a small piece of fruit he had found near the tunnel entrance. Even injured, he still brought her food. They spent the night inside the tunnel. Zeria used a wet cloth from an old bag to clean Argon's wound. She wasn't a doctor, but she did her best. "You're not just a dog," she said. "You're my hero." Argon didn't respond, but his tail moved. In the silence, Zeria whispered, "Why did you help me? You don't even know who I am." Argon lifted his head and stared at her. He saw something in her eyes, not just fear, but strength. She reminded him of a young soldier he once protected. Brave, gentle, worth saving. He leaned forward and rested his head on her lap. Zeria smiled for the first time in days. Far above them, General Dravik watched a broken palace feed from a spy satellite. Drone had sent a final image before it exploded. It showed a human war dog shielding the princess. Dravik narrowed his eyes. A human weapon is protecting her. Interesting. He turned to his officers. Find them. Kill the dog. Bring me the girl. He didn't know it yet, but that dog would become his worst enemy. The sun on Kyvaron was red and cruel. Heat waves danced over the broken city as Zariah stepped out of the old tunnel, her small hand resting on Argon's metal back. The war dog limped beside her, his burned side still sore but his body alert, scanning everything. They had made it through the night, but the danger wasn't over. In the sky above, small black dots appeared. More drones. Zariah gasped. They found us again. Argon growled low. His red eye glowed. He nudged her forward and started running despite his injury. The streets were no longer safe. Buildings leaned like broken teeth. Fires crackled in corners where fuel cells still burned. Sharp metal beams jutted out of the ground. Ash rained from above like snow. But Zariah didn't complain. She ran. She ran with the only friend she had left in the galaxy. Behind them, the drone swarm split into two groups. One group followed the smoke trails from Argon's damaged. The other scanned for heat. Zariah's body warmth. Argon saw the problem. They couldn't hide now. They had to go somewhere no one would follow. He turned sharply, cutting into an alley, then down a cracked stairwell leading deep below the surface. Zariah coughed from the smoke. Where are we going? Argon's nose twitched. The scent of old machinery, burned plastic, rusted wires, the biohazard zone. Kyvaron's undercity was once a lab, where strange experiments took place. Long ago, during the great alien-human wars, this zone was used to build mutant soldiers, create alien weapons, and test dangerous tech. But after an explosion in the lab's core, the whole area was sealed. Now, only scavengers and dying things lived there. Zariah looked at the walls. Symbols were scratched everywhere. Warnings in dozens of alien languages. Do not enter. Death lives here. No way back. Her legs trembled. It's cursed. Argon barked once and kept going. He didn't care about ghosts, only survival. As they moved deeper, the world changed. Walls became darker. The air turned cold and thick. Strange sounds echoed from the shadows, metal creaking, hissing pipes, distant growls. Suddenly, Zariah slipped. She fell into a pool of greenish water. It stank of chemicals. She cried out, but before she could panic, Argon grabbed her by the collar and pulled her out. She coughed and spit out the bitter taste. Thank you. Argon licked her cheek gently. Further ahead, they entered a massive underground hall. It had once been a science chamber. Now it looked like a graveyard. Broken glass tubes lined the walls. Inside them, half-grown creatures floated in silence. Failed. Experiments. Some were part human, part alien. Others were things no one had names for. Zariah stepped closer to one. A childlike figure floated inside, eyes closed, wires in its skull. She whispered, "Did they make these to fight people like me?" Argon barked softly and pushed her away. Not now. Not the time. Suddenly, a screech tore through the silence. A shape dropped from the ceiling, a mutated scavenger, four-legged, with skin like melted wax and claws of bone. Argon snarled. Zariah screamed. More came from the dark, twisted beasts hungry for flesh. Argon jumped between them and Zariah. His red eye glowed brighter. He launched himself at the first monster. Teeth met bone. Claws met steel. Zariah covered, her ears shaking. The fight was brutal. Argon was fast, but the beasts were many. Blood, his and theirs, splattered the floor. Finally, Argon stood panting, his chest rising and falling fast. All three scavengers were down. Zariah ran to him. "Are you okay?" His ear was torn. One of his legs was shaking, but he stood tall. He licked her again. "I'm still here." They reached the far side of the lab. A giant vault door stood closed, but next to it was a panel. and a strange symbol. Zariah's eyes widened. That's my family's crest. The symbol glowed faintly as she touched it. A soft chime echoed. Then, click. The door slid open slowly. Behind it, an old shuttle bay, abandoned, covered in dust. But intact, and parked in the corner, a small royal escape ship. Zariah turned to Wad, Argon, hope shining in her eyes. If we fix it, we can escape, maybe even find others who survived. Argon wagged his tail once, but his ears twitched. A soft beep echoed behind them. A drone had followed their scent, and more were coming. Zariah looked at the ship, then back at Argon. We can't give up now. We made it through fire. We made it through monsters. She picked up a metal rod from the floor and held it tight. I'm not just a little girl anymore. I'm a princess. Argon gave a proud growl. Together, they ran toward the ship, toward the last chance they had. Inside, the old shuttle bay. Dust floated like tiny stars in the air. The once golden walls were now gray with time. Every sound echoed, Zariah's breathing, Argon's heavy pause, and the soft hum of forgotten machines still trying to live. Zariah stared at the royal escape ship. Its silver wings were cracked, but the body looked strong. The symbol of her family, a star wrapped in vines, still shimmered on the side. This belonged to my father, she whispered. Argon sniffed the ship and wagged his tail once. It was safe. It was real. They stepped inside. The lights flickered on. The control panel lit up weakly, asking for a royal code. Zariah's heart sank. I don't know the code. She looked at Argon with fear in her eyes. What if we came all this way? And we're stuck. Argon tilted his head and looked at her arm. Specifically, the mark on her wrist. It wasn't just a birthmark. It was glowing. Zariah's skin shimmered softly with the same shape as the crest on the ship. She remembered now. When she was a baby, her father said something about a key written in blood. Her code was inside her. Zariah placed her hand on the scanner. The screen blinked. Royal genetic signature accepted. Emergency protocol, open. The cockpit opened with a slow hiss. Zariah stepped in. For the first time in days, she felt something strange. Control. She explored the ship with Argon close behind. The rooms were small. Sleep pod, med station, command bay. But everything was still working. Even a small stash of supplies, food, bandages, water. Home, she said softly. But there was something else. A metal box bolted to the wall. Zariah opened it, and inside was a small glowing cube. She touched it. The ship's system suddenly activated a hologram. A tall alien man appeared. Her father. Zariah, the message said. His voice was calm but serious. If you're seeing this, we are either dead or worse. Zariah's lips trembled. The hologram continued. Inside your DNA is a secret royal code. It is the last command key to Kyvaron's ancient defense satellites. The general can't control them. Only you can. She looked at Argon. He sat silently listening like a soldier. You must survive, the king said. Because Kyvaron is not dead, it's only sleeping, and only a true heir can wake it. Then the hologram faded. Zariah dropped to her knees. Her tiny body shook. I'm not ready for this. I'm just a child. Argon stepped forward and laid his head in her lap. He didn't need to speak. She wasn't alone. She looked into his eyes. One red, one brown, and in those eyes she saw belief. Belief in her. Suddenly the ship's alarm blared. The control panel lit up. Incoming units detected. Unmarked patrol ships. The general had found them. Zariah jumped to the controls. Can we fly this thing? Argon barked. The ship shook as a blast hit the outer wall of the shuttle bay. Zariah grabbed the pilot seat. She had never flown before, but her hands moved with strange ease. The ship recognized her. The engines roared to life. Doors began to open slowly as Argon jumped into the co-pilot station. Blasts echoed outside. Zariah slammed her hand on the launch pad. The ship lifted off the ground. The shuttle bay shook with another explosion. Zariah clenched her teeth. Hold together, just a little more. The ship blasted through the opening gate just as fire swallowed the underground base behind them. They rose into the sky. Argon howled proudly, but on the radar screen, enemy patrols were closing in. "We're not safe yet," she whispered. Argon's tail stiffened. Zariah opened a second panel, the one marked Defense Grid Royal Access Only. She hesitated. Could she really do this? The cube in her lap pulsed once. Her father's words echoed in her mind. Only a true heir can wake it. She pressed her finger on the final switch. In orbit above Kyvaron, long sleeping satellites, black rings floating like ghosts, suddenly blinked awake. Giant weapons rotated. Old AI voices whispered. Code accepted. Target lock. Hostile ships. Protect the bloodline. The enemy ships didn't even have time to react. Blue beams rained from the sky. One by one, they exploded in flame and silence. Zariah watched from the cockpit, mouth open. I did that? Argon gave a proud bark. Zariah sat back, her heart racing. Argon placed his head gently on her foot. She reached down and touched his scarred metal ear. You didn't just save me, she whispered. You gave me back my future. He licked her hand. In that moment, she wasn't just a lost little girl anymore. She was a princess with power and a war dog who chose her. The stars outside the window looked peaceful, but Zariah knew better. She sat quietly in the pilot's seat of the Royal Escape ship, her hand resting on Argon's head. His body was finally still. For now, they were safe, hidden behind a gas cloud orbiting Kyvaron's broken moon. But danger still hunted them. They had escaped the surface. They had activated the old defense satellites. But the war was not over. General Dravik was still out there, and he was furious. Zariah stared at the glowing cube in her hand. It still pulsed with the royal code. It was the last gift from her father. And now, it was her burden. She looked at Argon and whispered, "We can't do this alone." The dog tilted his head slightly, listening. Zariah took a breath and tapped into the ship's long-range communication system. It was weak and old, but still alive. She sent a simple message to space. To anyone loyal to House Kyvaron, the princess lives. Come home. Then she waited. Hours passed. Then a voice answered. Rough, scratchy, not military. It belonged to a human smuggler. His name was Reeve Torin. "I got your signal, little star," he said with a laugh. "You say you're the lost princess? That's a bold claim." Zariah kept her voice calm. "I can prove it. Help me, and you'll be remembered. Forever." There was silence. Then he replied, "Dock at these coordinates, but hurry. Dravik's ships are everywhere." Zariah wasn't sure she trusted him, but she had no choice. Argon stayed close as they approached Reeve's freighter, a large, ugly, rusted human ship floating near an asteroid belt. They docked. The doors opened, and there he was, Reeve Torin, a tall man in a torn jacket, cybernetic eye blinking with a sly grin on his face. Well, you're even younger than I expected." Zariah stepped forward. "Are you going to help me or not?" Reeve chuckled. "Sure, kid. I like brave ones." He looked at Argon. "And your pet?" Zariah raised her chin. "He's not my pet. He's my protector." Argon growled low, just enough to send a warning. Reeve brought them into the ship. Zariah shared everything. The betrayal, the secret code, the surviving satellites. Reeve nodded slowly. "So you're planning to rebuild Kyvaron, eh? You'll need more than a defense grid. You'll need allies, fleets, supplies." "I just need time," Zariah said. "Will you help me buy it?" Reeve smiled again. "I've helped worse people for less." But when he turned away, his smile faded. An hour later, inside his private chamber, Reeve sent out a hidden message. "Direct transmission to General Dravik. I've got the girl, the dog too. Send the credits." The trap was set. That night, as Zariah slept curled up in the ship's medbay, Argon sat awake watching the shadows. Something didn't feel right. He sniffed the air. Footsteps. Quiet. Slow. He moved silently into the hallway. Reeve stood near, the ship's door with 3 armed mercenaries. They carried stun weapons and cuffs. Argon growled. Low, deep, dangerous. Reeve flinched. You again? Damn dog. Argon leapt. The fight was fast and brutal. The first mercenary went down with a broken arm. The second's weapon was crushed between Argon's jaws. The third ran screaming. Reeve fired once, hitting Argon's shoulder. But the dog didn't stop. Reeve backed away as Argon cornered him. Zariah ran in, eyes wide. What's happening? Argon barked and pointed his nose at the transmission device still glowing behind Reeve. Zariah saw the code, a message to Dravik. Her hands shook. You lied to me. Reeve smirked. It's just business, kid. Nothing personal. Zariah stepped back. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I trusted you. Then she reached for the emergency lever. Reeve's eyes widened. Wait, don't. Too late. She pulled it. A security door slammed down, trapping. Reeve in the hallway, airlocks hissed. Zariah looked at him one last time. This is personal, and she ejected him into space. Zariah collapsed against the wall, shaking. Argon limped to her, licking her face gently. I was stupid, she whispered. I thought someone would help us. But Argon stayed close, pressing his body against hers. You're the only one who hasn't left me, she said, crying softly. Argon nuzzled her hand, and I never will. In the quiet after betrayal, Zariah sat in the pilot's seat once more. The ship floated through space. Her father's cube still glowed. She looked at Argon and said, No more messages. No more asking for help. She wiped her tears and stared at the stars. We're going to do this alone, Argon barked once, proud. And as Kyvaron's stars lit the black sky, the princess and her loyal war dog flew on, heading straight toward the enemy. This time, they wouldn't run. The sky above Kyvaron was finally blue again. For the first time in weeks, the fires had stopped. The satellites that once guarded the stars now circled silently, waiting for their next command. The war was not fully over. But the nightmare had been broken. And in the heart of the ruined capital, a crowd had gathered. They stood in the palace courtyard, eyes wide, breath held, watching as the last royal banner was raised, the symbol of the star and vines, the mark of the true bloodline. At the edge of the platform stood a young girl with silver hair and blue skin. She was small. She was quiet. But she had survived the fire, the betrayal, the stars. She was Zariah, Princess of Kyvaron. And today, she would be queen. The people whispered as she stepped forward. Is it really her? She's just a child. Didn't she die? No. She came back. With a human war dog. Then they saw him. Beside her, strong and silent, walked Argon. His metal frame gleamed under the twin suns. Scars lined his face. His shoulder still bore the mark of battle. One eye glowed red, the other brown. He didn't bark. He didn't growl. He simply stood beside her, like a shadow of steel and loyalty. The people fell silent, because this wasn't just a dog. This was the protector of the last royal heir. Zariah stepped to the microphone. Her voice was soft but steady. My parents are gone. My home was destroyed. I was left behind. She looked around, her fingers brushing Argon's back. But I was not alone. Her voice grew stronger. When no one came, he came. When I was forgotten, he remembered me. When I was weak, he made me brave. She turned to Argon. He is not a pet. He is not a machine. She turned back to the crowd. He is the Knight of Kyvaron. The crowd erupted in cheers. Tears flowed. Flags rose. The girl they left to die now stood tall above them. Later that night, Inside the rebuilt throne room, Zariah sat quietly on the edge of the old stone chair. It was far too big for her. Argon lay curled beside the throne, finally resting. She reached down and stroked his ear. "I thought becoming queen would feel different," she whispered. Argon opened one eye and huffed softly. Zariah smiled. "You're right, it's not about the crown, it's about the people." She stood up and walked to the window. Fires no longer lit the city. Instead, lanterns glowed. Hope had returned. Suddenly, a small ship approached from orbit. Zariah's guards looked nervous, but when the doors opened, they stepped back in shock. It was a group of human and alien fighters, former rebels, smugglers, and soldiers who had seen her message. They had watched her fire the vengeance from the sky. They came not to fight, they came to kneel. "We saw the broadcast," one of them said. "We saw you stand. We saw him fight." An old human commander stepped forward. "You're the kind of queen we can follow." Zariah looked at Argon. Then she nodded. "Then rise, all of you. We will rebuild Kyvaron together." Weeks passed. The ruins were cleared. New walls were built. Allies from distant colonies arrived. Some alien, some human. They didn't come for gold. They came for her, for the girl who faced fire, with a dog by her side. Legends grew. Tales spread through the galaxies. Of a little alien girl left to die. Of a human war dog who found her. Of how they ran through fire, escaped betrayal, and destroyed a warship together. Of how a throne was not taken by force, but reclaimed with loyalty. And always the final line. She was never truly alone. Because he chose her. One day, years later, a child would visit the great statue in Kyvaron's new capital. It showed a young queen with one hand raised, and beside her a mighty war dog standing guard. The child would ask, "Is that real? Did a dog really save her?" And the guide would smile and say, "He didn't just save her. He made her queen." And in doing so, he became a legend.